All right, everybody, welcome to the Friday edition of Locked On Avalanche. And the Avs might have not had a pick in the first round or second or third or fourth or fifth. Well, at least yesterday's draft was just the first round, but it doesn't mean they were quiet. And the Avs made a move with their goalie situation. And if you follow us on Instagram, one of us is happy. One of us, well, I wouldn't say happy. One of us is okay with it, while the other one, me, I don't know. I have some questions. So we will get to that. Joe Sakic finally gets his due, and some words on Josh Manson. Maybe not so fast with him running back to Anaheim. A lot to get to today. Let's get to it.
You're Locked On Avalanche, your daily podcast on the Colorado Avalanche. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Darcy, we hardly knew you, but thanks for the memories. The Colorado Avalanche make a move to bring in a goalie, thus ending the short stint of Darcy Kuemper in Colorado. Kind of a little bit of a surprise to me, man, but we'll talk about it. Thank you for making this your first listen of the day. That's always appreciated. Follow Locked On Avalanche on all our Instagram or all our social media outlets, including Instagram at Locked On Avalanche, LOPN_Avalanche on Twitter, Locked On Avalanche at gmail.com. You can send your questions, comments, concerns, opinions to that. And follow us on our YouTube channel over on the YouTube. Hit subscribe, get notified when a new show goes live. All right, Kyle, the big news for the Avalanche yesterday was not the draft because they didn't have any pick in the first round. And their first pick was going to be the third round, but they traded that away along with a fifth rounder in this year's draft and next year's third round pick. So 3 draft picks go to the New York Rangers for Igor Shesterkin's backup in Alexander Georgiev. So that, first of all, as far as the draft goes, that leaves the Avalanche with a 6th and a 7th round draft pick for this season or for this draft, essentially doing away with the draft for this year. And the goalie you bring in. So the interesting thing, they met with Darcy Kuemper now 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And then the very next day, which was yesterday, they make this deal. So clearly, when they met with Darcy Kuemper, it was, we're just not there. We're nowhere near where we need to be. And instead of maybe trying to chip away at that and trying to find a common ground, that's a little scary as to where the Avs are and what Darcy Kuemper maybe is asking for, which I've heard is in the 6 to 7 range. And the Avalanche aren't going to touch that. So instead of trying to make some headway in negotiations, the Avs were just quick to say, we're going to move on. And I'm sure that was a very difficult decision. And the answer is Alexander Georgiev from the New York Rangers. I'm not a fan of this move. I'll throw it over to you first, and we'll talk about this because there's a lot to discuss.
Yeah, when it comes to the talks with DK, and it sounds like they were on 2 completely different planets, not just 2 completely different areas. Like the contracts, like if he's wanting 6+ for a contract, like that's pricey for a goalie. And Sakic's not going to want to pay close to 8 to 10 million for a stable of goalies. That's just not the Sakic way. And that coupled with a small stable of free agent goalies, moves are already being made left and right. You saw it in last night's draft. There are moves being made. You don't want to be behind those moves. If you're going to sit there and play back and forth with an agent to find something you want to work with Darcy Kuemper on getting this contract closer to where you want, you're wasting days, hours, days that other teams are working. And then your second option, Georgiev, could be somewhere else. So that was just Sakic saying, okay, I see what you're doing. Go find your money. Thank you for everything. We'll handle this. So, and yes, I understand what you're saying with the quality of caliber goaltender. That also makes sense. And we'll get into that. But on the whole, it's not as bleak as you may think.
Well, I don't think you can answer that question right now. I mean, this is all kind of conjecture and just what we feel, because the fact is the Avalanche are going into next year with 2 backup goalies as their tandem. That's just a fact. You know what I mean? And I don't like that dynamic. If I'm a championship team, a defending championship team, I want as many positions shored up as possible, especially the goalie position. And I think it says a lot for where Joe Sakic's mind is in not throwing dollars at a goalie, even in free agency. You know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
was, although it's thin for goalies, there's a couple out there that you could have said, okay, if they don't get Kemper for the right price, which I mean, and we keep forgetting that, Arizona kept $1 million of his contract. So for this next year, if it's true that Kemper was in the 6 to 7 range, where were the Avs? Probably in the 4 to 5 range would be my guess. Because if Kemper's at 6 to 7, Avs are at 5 to 6, you can work with that. So they must have been further apart than we really realize. Because if you go back even further to when they were dealing with Philip Grubauer, they didn't seem like they were that far off. It was more or less term, and they were, or so we think, they were in like the 5.5 range. Did they not want to go that far for Darcy Kuemper? And if they didn't, it doesn't seem like they wanted to do that in free agency either. So they went this route, and it's very, very interesting to do this because you're not like your goalie tandem. When they sign Georgiev, who's a restricted free agent, they have to get that done. I have every reason to believe that they will. Your total for your 2 goalies is going to be about $5 million. Your total. So this is a chance. He is taking a chance here. And you're not putting a lot of money in your goalies. And I get it, because you have maybe some big contracts coming up, and maybe you can give someone like Nichushkin a little bit extra. Maybe that's some play money for Nazem Kadri if you want to try to deal with him and get that number down. And so he's not sacrificing putting a lot of money into the goalie situation to put it elsewhere. I understand it, but man, like, it is a risk if you ask me.
Well, there was not that big of a concern or complaint when we had Grubauer in here, who was a backup coming in. He was a backup in
Correct.
Washington.
Yes, he was.
And we rode Grubauer, and he became a starter. He became well loved, and there's still a portion of the fan base that wishes he was still here, even through the Darcy Kuemper. We praise Darcy Kuemper for his one series in Arizona. That in the bubble, like, it looked great, and that was the reason that Sakic had, like, kind of put a mark on him, like, let me check on you when your contract rolls around. We were still debating Darcy Kuemper being on this team because of his hot and his cold, and like his inconsistencies, the same things we've been grilling Burakovsky about in yesterday's episode. The same can be said for Darcy Kuemper. The Avalanche haven't had a solid number 1 goalie yet. So this is still par. This is still par for the course.
Well, the thing is, man, like, they do, and then they leave. You know what I mean? Like, Varlamov was a Vezina Trophy candidate. You know what I mean? He followed that up by having a rough season, and he kind of played his way out of Colorado. And you said when Philip Grubauer came over, he became a starter. That's true. And that's what I have to hang my hat on for what we're going to have with Francouz and Georgiev. You hope one of them can become the starter, because I don't think this is just given to Pavel Francouz. I think that, like, we are going to have a quarterback controversy in training camp, basically. Like, none of these guys. I think you would give it to Francouz, like, going in. He would probably be the starter because he's been here longer, so you kind of naturally give it to him. But I don't think these 2 guys are that far apart where it like one of them can outplay the other for sure, and it's going to be up in the air for training camp.
And what's extremely interesting is, 24 hours since yesterday's episode, we were talking about, wow, this really is terrible if the Avalanche are opening the season with a back-to-back. Now look at what we have. we have a
Oh, you're gonna get him.
Francouz night, and then you're going to have a Georgiev night on the next night right after, and then
That's so true.
like it's crazy how a hockey season works, but this is what you're going to get, and you feel like yes, the loyalty is going to give Pavel Francouz the 1A written on the roster with a pencil,
Mm.
but I feel like it's any man's job right now,
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
and we talk about riding the hot hand. That's going to be the tone of the season. And when it comes to this extra money, it's not going to be so much like shoring up that goalie position. You want to fix the defense in front of it, because that's what carried Grubauer, that's what carried Darcy Kuemper and
Mhm.
Francouz when he started. The goalie's best friend is the defense and will be, and I think that's where things are going to be addressed.
But what you just said is something that I don't want, man. Like how you said, like we're gonna ride the hot hand all season. I don't want that in a goal. I am all for tandem goalies. Like that is
Mhm.
the way the NHL is right now. Adam Denker and I have this argument all the time, and he can feel that you want to ride a horse because he's got Andre Vasilevsky. He might feel different if he had anybody else.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't know. Like I'm more comfortable having that solid goaltender that you can always turn to. It's like an ace starter in baseball. Like when you get to that rotation, you got that number one guy going, you know you're going to get a good performance from him. I know it's a little bit different in hockey, but when you have that guy you can turn to say like you are the guy that needs to like stop the dam from collapsing. And right now it's all up in the air for the Avalanche. And I don't want to make it sound like this is all like doom and gloom. Like I have I have faith in a lot of things, and I have faith in Joe Sakic and him making the right moves. I have faith in Pavel Francouz. I watch a lot of Ranger games.
Mhm.
That's my East Coast team. I am not sold on Georgiev. They were wanting him to take
Mhm.
over for Henrik Lundqvist.
Mhm.
And he was, I don't want to say he was given the job. There was kind of like a duel going between him and Shesterkin just outplayed him, and now that's where we are. I'm not sold on him. And when again, if you have a good defense in front of you, you can maybe look more of like a star than you actually are. Maybe he just needed to get out of the shadow of Igor Shesterkin. I don't know. Like he plays for the Avalanche. I'm going to root for him, and I want him to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong, and I will come on here and say, and I will eat crow. And Joe Sakic, you continue to be a genius. But I've watched him play, and maybe it's because he doesn't play as much and he can't get into a good rhythm. I'm not sold on him right now. I'm
Well,
just not.
and I have something that needs to be said about Pavel Francouz, and I will say that in the next segment, because this is
Okay.
something that needs to be said, and we have dodged it for a long time, and I feel like it needs to be said and it needs to be talked about.
If that doesn't keep you around, I don't know what will. But right
Mhm.
now, we're going to hear from betonline.net, your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Uh, I wonder how much this changes the dynamic for the
Yeah.
Avalanche being the favorites. I mean, we were talking about this the day after our Stanley Cup show.
Yeah.
They were already the favorites. How much does this change it? This is what we talked about. Like this, it's so
Yep.
funny that those odds go out there right away when not one move has been met. Well, this is a move. How much does it affect the Avalanche odds for next season? Don't know yet because we're recording this just hours after this happened. So something to keep an eye on. But you can find all your latest sport developments, league reviews, and news, including this NHL offseason and Major League Baseball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting and esports. And it remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news for this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easy way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. That's betonline.net. It's where the game starts. All right. So you were teasing something about Pavel Francouz and something that we don't discuss a lot or something like that. You were saying, what do you got?
It's every time the name Pavel Francouz is brought up, I hear the same thing. He is a really solid backup, but he's no starter.
Mm-hmm.
No duh. He has not been given the chance to start.
Right.
You can't say uh yeah, I think he'll make a great starter, or he's not going to be a great starter. He hasn't been given the reins. This could finally be the chance, because you see Pavel Francouz in a relief. Like, he's a relief pitcher who comes and gets you out of a bind, or comes and gets you a save, or just holds on and takes the L in the regular season. Like, he has never had a couple games to string together and get a groove and the defense work with him. It's always been a relief effort. This is the opportunity for Pavel Francouz, who did not lose a game in last year's playoffs,
Mhm.
to come in there and work with this team and establish himself as a starter. You can't keep him on the bench and say that's not a starter, because yes, he's on the bench. We're giving him the chance now to become a starter. Everything he's shown us so far, he's got the qualities to be a starter. You can't say health is an issue when you had Darcy Kuemper, who we talked about when he came in here, was made of glass and his equipment falls apart. Like,
Yeah.
you rode him with no problem, and you say, well, Francouz has, like, can he stay healthy? Can anybody stay healthy? It's a hockey problem. It's part of the game. We have to finally allow Francouz to create his own narrative when it's the caliber of quality goalie that he is, and give him the start. Yes, he's a backup because he's been a backup. He's never been the starter.
Right.
This is the chance.
And he's going to be given that chance. And this, you hear this all the time where people seize an opportunity. And this is an opportunity for him. My problem with it is just the timing of it. It's just, you are coming out of a championship season. And is that what you want? Do you want two unproven goalies to take the reign? And maybe this is the plan, that they're both, backups, that one of them is not going to be expected to play 55 games during the regular, this might be split right down the middle, where they're each playing 42 games.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. And maybe, like you're saying, I think what you said earlier is true. They're going to ride the hot hand. I get that. It's just where the Avs are right now as a franchise, winning the Stanley Cup. You want to go into next season with as few question marks as possible. And I'm sorry, but your goalie situation is a question mark right now. And it's not that I don't feel, I love Pavel Francouz, and I love what he's done, and he's come in relief so many times and proven himself. It is a different animal if the Avs go the route of, like, no, we're going to hang our you are tagged the number one goalie. That is a completely different animal when you are the guy day in and day out. I'm not saying he can't do it. He just hasn't been given the opportunity to do it. So we don't know. We don't know how he's going to respond to that. We hope that it's a good thing and that he can, and like I said, seize the opportunity. We just have nothing to go on. And I don't like being in that position as the returning Cup champions.
You also have to understand that pieces of the DNA of this team won playoff games with Hutchinson in net, and we've had Miska in there and Werner, and we still managed to squeak out games with insert name goalie here. It doesn't really, and we said this a number of times on here, the goalie doesn't matter as long as the offense and defense are doing their job. Whoever settles in back there, they get confident. And this
Yes.
is where we talked about the hot hand a couple times. If Francouz wants this job, this is how he's going to get it. Get in there, get confident, because if you don't, you have a Noonan right behind you. He's going to either take your job or Georgiev's job. So
Yeah.
there's pressure from behind, and there's pressure on the whole team. And honestly, and like when you were saying, like, this isn't what a cup team should do, I honestly feel like this is Joe Sakic's way of not getting cavalier, complacent, cocky going into next year. We're the defending cup champs. We got the party back together. Fight for it. Defend it. This is something new behind you. Defend it. You don't know what you have back there, so you have to step your game up just a little bit.
I think he's definitely going the route of, we said it when they got Darcy Kuemper. If he can just be serviceable, they'll be fine. And during the regular season, he was better than that.
Yeah.
He was better than that. And yeah, he had a rough postseason. I think we kind of know why, not using that as an excuse, but it played a part. And I was looking forward to him signing a 3 or 4 year contract. You know, you're not at his age, you're not going to get a 6 or 7 year contract. I was looking forward to just being comfortable and confident that we had a goalie that has proven that he can, you know, obviously win a cup when he's not 100% in the playoffs. Get him into training camp, you know what I mean? Just another training camp that he's with. I was just looking forward to that. And with the Avs and the goalie situation, I think this is the trend for the Avs. And like you said, and a lot of people say, they feel like they can put somebody that can just hold down the fort and just let the offense do their thing, let the defense do what they did in game 6 of period 3 against Tampa. And, you know, they're just asking their goalie, just stop 15 to 20 shots.
Yeah.
and we'll be okay. It's a big risk. It's worked. Will it continue to work is the question. I don't know. I don't, because of who they have back there. I can't answer. I have to see it in action. And then, you know, we'll revisit this at different spots along the way. And again, I hope I am completely wrong on this, but I don't know.
Like, what move has Joe Sakic done where we have to doubt? Who did Joe Sakic let walk that has burned us? Does anybody want Grubauer back? No. After you see how he performed in Seattle, like,
But
you're
it
like,
is
wow.
Seattle. It is Seattle. You know what I mean? That's a poor team.
But that's
I get what you're saying. It's a poor
that's
team.
his quality on display. Like, that's him. That is
Mhm.
Grubauer, raw Grubauer. That's what
Mhm.
you get. Like, you're not hurting because of the Donskoy move. Like, there are players that walked or got moved or that are not part of this team that you're not, oh man, every time we play him, I just wish he was here. Like, the only player you hear is like Stasny during the cup run because it would have been nice for him to win a cup with us. But like Belmar, he went other places. Like, everybody that Sakic let go, it's for a reason. And look at what he replaced it with. And then at the time, you're like, Darren Helm, what is this about? Like,
Yeah, I know, man.
Cogliano, this doesn't make sense. Like,
I
okay,
know.
whatever. And then fast forward, we sign Cogliano and we're having a parade for the man.
I can't. There's no rebuttal for that. Like, he had, with the exception of the one trade deadline with Patrick Nemeth and Carl Soderberg, it's been aces for Joe Sakic. And I genuinely hope this is. I mean, this is my team. This is who I root
Yeah.
for. You know, and I want everybody that comes in to be the best that they possibly can be. It's just, like I said earlier, I don't like starting the season with a goalie tandem of two goalies that just. I mean, I say they haven't like proven themselves, but you're right that they haven't been given the opportunity. But I do think Georgiev did get some of an opportunity in New York, didn't seize it, but he also has, you know, Igor Shesterkin coming in. But I mean, that you could just go round and round talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, like now we know what we're getting, because at the draft, Joe Sakic was interviewed and he said, no, this is it. This is our tandem. This is who we're going with. So there's no other moves coming. There's not another free agent one, and for whatever reason, Georgiev would go down to the AHL for some reason. They didn't acquire him for that to happen. So this is it. And I have to ask the question, are the Avs better now in goal than they were 24 hours ago or whatever? You know what I mean? Like at the end of the season, 48 hours ago, when they still technically had Darcy Kuemper. Are they better in goal?
It's the equivalent of getting
No.
an upgrade on your internet and they plug it in and they ask you, well, do you see a difference? And you haven't done a thing on it yet. Like, yeah, you
Yeah,
have
I
it.
know.
It's the same with Frankie. We've seen what he can do, and we know what Georgiev can do and hasn't been given the opportunity to. These are two hungry goalies looking to make their name in the NHL. And Sakic is giving them the opportunity, the keys to a Porsche, a defending Stanley Cup champion. You want to make your name? Here you
Mhm.
go. What better
Right.
situation?
Yeah. And you're right. You know, and sometimes that's where players rise up, like I said. And for Georgiev, it's for for Francouz, like he's 32 years old. You know, he'll get another contract, I'm sure, after this current one runs out, but you're not expecting it to be like massive. But for Georgiev, like I'm only anticipating like a 2 or 3 year deal for him.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine like the way that the Avalanche handle goalies, they're going to give him this 6-year deal because he's not proven anything yet. So for him, he gets a 2 or 3 year contract and he plays incredible. Yeah, he's cashing in next time, and then we're gonna be talking in another couple of years that the Avalanche got to get another goalie because they're not going to pay him. So I mean, it's this cyclical thing for the Avalanche and goalies. But like I said, it seems to have worked now, but it's been working. You've been doing well with goalies who you expect to do well. You expected Grubauer to do well. You expected Darcy Kuemper to do well. I'm hoping Georgiev and Pavel Francouz can do well over, especially like I know what I'm getting in Francouz. It's just the added workload that is what is concerning to me. We'll see.
Just cross your eyes. Francouz is DK and Georgiev is Frankie, and just handle them that same way like you did last year. And you don't know what you're getting in Georgiev, but you kind of have an idea what Frankie can do.
But like I said, man, like I've watched Georgiev a lot, and I'm just not there with him. I'm just not. We gotta get Brittany on here and tell us,
yeah, true,
and school us in the ways of goalies. But I don't know, man. It's a question mark, and I want to be wrong. I love to be wrong and proven wrong. So, all right, let's get to, we're talking about Joe Sakic, obviously, and all these moves that he's made in the past, and finally he gets his due and he wins the Jim Gregory Award. They announced this thing during the first round, so I put up on Twitter that the Avalanche still found a way to get into the first round, and that's with Joe Sakic winning the Jim Gregory Award for Best GM. Long time coming, long overdue. He finally wins it. So congratulations to him, and clearly well deserved.
Well deserved, and Nashville had to wait for their pick to watch.
Was that true? I didn't even put that together. They were the ones that were waiting, and they had extra time then to figure out what they want to do with their pick. So in that aspect, that's pretty funny.
Yeah,
I didn't notice that. Yeah, it's just he's deserved to be nominated for several years in a row.
Absolutely.
So the first time he's nominated, he finally wins it. And I didn't. Peter Ball actually put it up that he's the first one to win the Jim Gregory and the Hart Trophy. Although the Jim Gregory has only been around for 13 years or something like that. He's the first one to do it. So I mean, a lot of good things have happened for the Avalanche. Clearly, with all the awards, Cale Makar's won. Obviously, the Stanley Cup, and now Joe Sakic. It was clearly a historical year for the Avalanche, and he's not. He's obviously on the phones all the time because he made that deal
on his birthday.
On his birthday, no less. Yeah, he's still working on his birthday. Give the man, a break. But it was Dater who put up that he met with Josh Manson's agent in Montreal. And Dater had said something to the effect of not so fast with these Manson to going back to Anaheim like it's a slam dunk rumors. It still possibly could happen. But I think people were just assuming that Manson wasn't even going to talk to anybody else. Just, I'm going to go back to Anaheim and we'll get a deal done. And that's that. But it seems like, if Manson's agent is meeting with Sakic in Montreal during the draft, there's more to it than that. And here we go. This is, we just did 20 plus minutes talking about these goalies. One big thing about them, like we said in the very beginning, the money, that you have a little bit more money now.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe getting a guy like Manson back is the beneficiary of this deal that they made for the goalies.
And with Nichushkin, the deal for Nate coming up, you might have a little bit more room to play with Kadri. You might can have more of a wider area that, hey, meet me here. We purposely didn't sign DK to bring you back. Work with me here. You have an extra chip there.
There is a little bit more money. That is just the fact. They could have probably went out and tried to deal a little bit with Darcy Kuemper, got him down to a lower number, but I don't think they want to risk anything. I've always felt like Joe Sakic and Chris McFarland have a plan and stick to it and don't go over at all. I genuinely feel that way. With some maybe the bigger names, they'll adjust here or there a little bit, but for the most part, they have it all written down how they want this to go, and this is how they do it. And if you don't want to be part of it, we will find somebody that will be in the number that we want it to be. That's just the impression that I get in watching them work. So, and I think for Kuemper, they weren't going to go over a line.
You have to prepare for that financially with the goalie position because there's only so many spots you can have. Like if a forward goes down, somebody could play left wing, right wing. They could play center. They can get through. There's so many moves you can make on the decor and on the top and bottom six. There's only so many moves you can make for goalie. So you have to give yourself a little bit of an emergency fund if things do go south. So if you're not going to reach that number that we can work with and still feel safe if we have to go get somebody, then let them walk and let them go get paid.
Yeah. So that's where we stand right now. An interesting day for the Avalanche and for Darcy Kuemper. I had to wear your number today because I was really hoping that you'd come back for a few more years, and it just isn't going to work out. And I get it. I'm not mad about it. He's going to go somewhere else and make some coin and play probably well wherever he goes, depending on where he goes. But he's going to be Vezina Trophy next year, no doubt. Because he leads the Avalanche, he'll be the Vezina Trophy winner.
He'll go to Philly, be the Vezina winner, then make me eat my words. And hey, Frankie, I know you listen to the show.
Absolutely,
you got this, bud.
I'm ruined.
Team Frankie, let's go.
I'm sorry if I just felt like I was like a Debbie Downer in this episode, but it's just the way after this trade happened. And like an hour or two went by, I sent you a text. I'm like, man, I'm not happy. I am not happy about this. And again, I'm rooting for him. They play for my team now, or Georgiev plays for my team now. So he's an Avalanche, and I hope he's awesome. I genuinely do. But I have a lot of concern to start the season next year in goal anyway. So we shall see, sir. All right, and you can go ahead to our Twitter page and our Instagram page, and the voting for Bo Byram is up right now. I think that ends around noon, so we'll get to him. We're planning on recording that tomorrow, so go vote. I think he's got A's right now, if I'm not mistaken, pretty much in hand. So
he's got the Arthur Fonzarelli A's.
Hey. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. Definitely make some posts on YouTube. I want to know what people think about this trade. It's always appreciated. And follow us on our social media pages, like we said. And then until next time, he is Mr. Shaggy Von Doom, Kyle Sullivan, and I am Chris Maselli. This is the Locked On Avalanche podcast. We'll see you guys tomorrow.